So we are recording. Okay, I'll just quickly just say what we're doing. I have a library called Chronospace. We are so far it's been mostly me and you contributing to it. So it's been pretty messy pushing into main. No, not a lot of structure, but I would really like to set it up so that it's actually kind of structured and tests are run whenever something is committed. And I guess this is the point where I would like to transition into this pull request. You know, like we were talking about at the retreat about what is the time where you do it, because in the beginning you want to move a little bit quick, but I feel like at this point it's a good good point to shift over to that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I guess also I would point out that like you still don't necessarily have to use like the pull work. You can still push like the same way. It would just be that anytime we'd be setting up some automation so that anytime you make a pull request, there is like a set of sort of things that you'd like the repo to pass before like you merge in. So like you can still push to main, you just get a little red X that says like, oh, it failed or something. So it doesn't totally have to influence like your, I guess, flow. Like if it's easy to push to main, that's fine. If you need to change a README thing, like committing to main, I think is totally fine. But especially for features, it's kind of nice to, when you're thinking about merging in something, you at least the last thing that you take off is okay, everything passed. Like it's good. So the other thing that I noticed about this repo, or when we were talking about this earlier this week, is that David already has some steps in here. So there are like he has testing set up. So he has a set of tests that will run. Also, this build step here runs TSC, which is TypeScript. So, but currently, in order for David to like enforce these, he runs these manually on the repo. And so it's sort of like in good faith that like you run these and make sure that they're running, but there's no sort of at the automation level that this type of stuff is getting enforced. And so we had brainstormed some things to add to the repo. And I think the order I'd like to do this first in is we can maybe, linting, formatting. Because we already have these sort of set up, we can start with those and at least get like the CI set up for the two steps that you already have. So, right. So I mean, on GitHub has something called GitHub Actions, which allow you to run automated like code in CI. Or maybe it's worth saying what CI is. Like so CI/CD is continuous integration, continuous deployment. And essentially you get like a little Linux box or some sort of like virtual machine that you can run arbitrary code on. And the way that GitHub Actions work, so if we go to GitHub Actions, docs, we can make this bigger. The way that GitHub's Actions works is that you can write these workflows or sort of you describe in YAML like how you actually want to run some particular tasks, and then GitHub will run these tasks based off of things they're called triggers or action. And so one type of trigger, let's see, GitHub Actions triggers. One type of trigger that GitHub Actions has, or events that can trigger, you can see that there are a bunch of different ways that you can actually trigger actions. So you can do pull requests, you can do if an issue is opened with a particular label, like all of these can trigger some sort of automated script that runs. And the stuff that we're going to be doing today is adding triggers that run on commit and on pull requests. So that's sort of like the easiest way. So if we go back to Chromospace, right, David has already added, CSS is crazy. Okay, there is already a workflow that's in here. We can maybe use this as a template to talk about like how a type of GitHub Actions that works. So currently David has a GitHub action here that publishes a build of a static site to GitHub pages. And the first directive that we see here is just a name. So this is something that if we go to the actions tab here, you'll see that that name is written here. So it's just a way of like organizing like the content, and you can even go and click over here on the sidebar, like a name for that action. I don't think that's even required. Like, I think if you left that off, you just see the YAML file name as like the thing. And then there are on is a directive that specifies like the events that you want to trigger this action. So currently we're saying anytime that you push to the branch main to trigger this action. If this branches specifier wasn't there, it would be any push. So from any branch, any like any branch, it would run this deployment. And so this is nice because you basically are saying, I only want to make a release anytime I push something into main, or I only want to deploy the website anytime something gets merged into main. And then I usually like adding this workflow dispatch because that allows you in the UI to click a button and just say like, okay, yeah, like if we go here, deploy, I can say run workflow and I could rerun this workflow. And that's coming because of that.
Right. And that's what you mentioned kind of outside. It actually has quite a lot of customization that you can do. So
yeah, workflow dispatch, you can add like other things, like so it's not just a button. You could add like a drop-down menu with some options if you want to like parameterize like an action that you want to run. These permissions are important for certain types of actions that are going to be doing uh like mutable things to like the repository. So you need to give certain permissions, like you want it to be able to read. For the type of stuff we're doing today, like we're not going to be making any commits. So like we're not going to have to give our CI workflow any special actions. Sorry, any special permissions. And then concurrency, I always forget how to actually specify this one, but this is nice if like, let's say this file has like a bunch of stuff going on in it and you want like as soon as one thing fails to just give up on the rest of the file. Like you don't want to spend like all of CI. Like I guess maybe something that'd be useful is like, let's say linting takes like no time, but like running your test suite takes a good amount of time and you immediately fail linting. Like you don't want to make the test run super long, or you can choose if you want to make that happen, but it essentially allows you to short circuit the rest of the workflow if like one step fails. Um, and then jobs, this is like where the meat of like the actual workflow happens. And jobs are broken down into a name for that job. So this one's called deploy. And then you specify these different steps. So an environment or somewhere that it runs on. So this is running on an Ubuntu machine. This environment is specifying sort of like almost like environment variables for like this action. And then the steps are the different pieces. And you'll always have this, usually always have this checkout, which is just, okay, let's clone the repo into this working directory. And then these are reusable like steps that you can have to build a site. Or in this case, these are both from GitHub. This actions namespace is ones that GitHub manages. Cool. So we could add more jobs to this like file that you already have, but I think it's usually nice to like break up your workflows, and especially usually think about breaking up your workflows based off of this when you want them to trigger. So things that you only want to happen on main, like that would make sense to put them together, but things that you want to run every PR, I would like put that into like a separate file. So yeah, I think you're already sort of getting there, but in I usually will go to like old projects, but because I like, or it's hard to remember all the different syntax. And I think we can start off with this sort of from this Zarita project of mine, this workflow for CI. So we're going to add a file called ci.yaml, which will run some of the different things that we have put up here. And the first two that we're going to add are TypeScript and testing.
Right. Just a question. I remember at least specifically, maybe this is specific to deploying to pages. Did you have a bunch of these predefined actions? I wonder if it's if it's good to kind of start with those. Oh, maybe it's actually in
Like
actions.
right, that you it says like you can new workflow.
Yeah, I guess you can like kind of click through it, but maybe Node.js package deployment. Um, yeah, it doesn't seem like there's anything specifically that we could use. Maybe the Node.js one
Yeah.
could be. I mean, the other thing that I also noticed just from using the pages, like these checkout, the actions, let's say slash checkout at the something, it actually updates quite frequently.
Yeah.
Like within just a few months or even weeks, it can skip versions, but it doesn't seem like it breaks stuff often.
No, you pin the version that you need, and it'd be more like if you need a newer version of it. Um, and actually the last thing that I was hoping to get today is this dependabot thing. And you can configure GitHub in a way that it will scrape those and open a PR for you and say, hey, there's a new version. So it can you can and we'll set that up in the repo today
I see.
to
Okay.
keep them up to date.
Okay. But then I guess we would just take the pages or CI from Zarita as a starting point then.
Yeah, I was thinking we could start here. Um, so I'm just going to open up this file. I'm going to paste it in. Maybe make this just a touch smaller. And yeah, we can. Oops. Oh, I already. Oh, that's funny. Uh, yeah, I'm realizing that I think escape triggers the showing it again, and I use it, but I think I can do it with this, and it'll be fine. Okay. Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to go down and let's just focus on so in your GitHub action, like this project that Chromospace doesn't use pnpm, we use Node. So what we want to get is an action for setting up Node. So we can go to GitHub actions, set up Node. And this is one that GitHub also has. And what we want to do is add this to our workflow here. I guess the other important thing to point out is that the first thing, you could run all these steps in one workflow, but I think it's nice to break them up into separate jobs because then on GitHub, you will see like you'll have a different green tick mark for like type checking versus testing versus like linting. And so this test one we can set up so that it uses what's it called? Test will end up calling vitest internally. So we can go down to our setup node. And I think we want, yeah, GitHub Copilot's helping me here, but it's pretty old. I say let's do like we could do 20. I think it's at 22 now, but 20 is fine. We can do that. And then we want to run npm install. So I think actually usually it's preferred to do npm CI. I forget. I think CI sounds like continuous integration, but this means clean install. So it's something that
does it? But it uses the log file, no?
it will, yeah.
CI kind of uses the log file as opposed to just running with the package JSON rules.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So and we can look just over here, I guess, at how they're telling us to use this. And then I think we can actually just copy that workflow. So run npm run test. So this workflow will check out the repo, make sure node's installed, install, and run test. So we can, I'm going to git switch and create a new branch that I'm going to call CI. CI. We'll create a PR. Oh, whoops, I need to actually make a commit. So we're going to add testing workflow, and then we'll create a PR. And submit. And then we can go and open this in the browser. And what you see now is that we have on this pull request, because it's been set up with this action. We see for the CI workflow that we're running the test step or the test job, and it's currently in progress. And if we click this details, you can actually, oh, it's already done. So you can see, yep, it ran vitest. It
Yeah.
passed the stuff. If this broke, we'd get a red. This would fail. Cool. So yeah, so that's setting up testing, and then the next thing I would do is like, let's set up type checking. So
Okay.
we can, in our file, we can add one here that we say, I like to call it type check. And we're just going to basically grab the same exact stuff that we have up here. So 6, 7, 8. So our build process runs type checking.
Right.
I guess what we could do is
Just do
npx tsc. So npx in a local directory will call like the version that you have installed. And it won't do it from like CI or whatever, or it won't fetch it remotely.
because there are no errors.
Yeah.
And then
Otherwise, we can add, maybe what we can do is npm run type check. Like we'll just add a command to your, so that if that ever changes somehow, we don't have to update the action.
Right.
And then in our package.json, we can go up to type check. Oh. Oh, right. Or maybe we can just do check. I don't know, whatever. npm run type check, whatever. Okay, so that runs. So now we can add these files. Commit, CI, add type, check, workflow. Okay, so if we go back, or I guess it's already, let's see if it's running. So this can usually happen if there is, yes. So I think I made there is an error in how I wrote the GitHub file. So if we go back, let's see if we can find. Maybe it's an indentation.
Is there any more information?
Let's see, workflow's not valid, line 25.
Runs on, yeah, that's what I've Ubuntu.
Ah, okay. Oops, I see I did the thing again.
No, it's okay. I mean, you can.
Okay, so if we go up to, right, so if I go to 6 and I do, oh, no. On, set that. Git commit, yeah, and run time. That should work now. Similarly to each of these workflows, you can add a name. But I always just capitalize and because that's what it just uses whatever the field that you give it.
So these are the different like jobs, is it called?
Yeah, the different jobs that are in the file. And then, so once let's just make sure that both of these work. So testing finished, type checking usually takes a little bit more time because it does more, it's doing, TypeScript can take a little while. Let's see. Okay, so this is all done. And I guess as a general principle for like CI stuff, you want to make sure that like it's like test CI doesn't take a ton of time. Like it's hard to avoid when like projects get really big, but like if you can have a nice iteration loop that when you push in like less than a minute, you get like a green thing to merge, it like won't get in your way of like yeah, publishing stuff. So I noticed that you have prettier, but I think it's not, I don't know if it's been configured for the repo. So
There is a config file, but honestly, I'm not even sure where it came from. If this was a part of some init or probably not. Yeah.
let's see.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So maybe we can merge this first.
Yeah.
And then because I'm guessing if we add linting and formatting, there might be code changes that we
Yeah.
actually need to make. And so this diff will be smaller. So we can squash this and I'll call it, oh, okay.
Cool.
Whoops.
Did you?
I don't know who did it first. I think you got it. Yeah, okay. Cool. So now we can go back and check out main. Nice. And we'll check out, we'll call this linting. Git switch. Okay. So I guess there are a couple things that we could try out. I have been using this newer tool that's called Biome, and I set it up for Zarita recently, um, which is ESLint is an um, ESLint is another option. I personally have been like preferring, or I've switched over to trying out this project because it formats code like prettier. So it basically, especially if you haven't been enforcing prettier, like this will essentially do what prettier does. Um, and it does both. It's much faster, and it does both linting and formatting. So
Okay.
it's like one tool that you can add. What you'll often see is in a project with like ESLint, you need a bunch of plugins to like get it to actually be quite strict or like to actually enforce some like sensible strictness. And I think like there's this project and there's another one that's called Ox. I'm sorry, Ox Lint. Yeah, see, I've already Googled for it. Which is sort of like they're more modern takes on this kind of stuff. And I think at least for this project, like linting isn't I think biome will probably be easiest to set up. And
Okay, so in like biome would be then kind of a combination of a formatter and a linter, if I'm.
yes, so you will have, yeah, and maybe it's good to discuss what each of those are. So a linter, there's certain things like, so if like your project uses TypeScript, which has like which requires you to specify specific types in and out of arguments. But like one thing that TypeScript won't help you with is like some like logical, um, it won't protect you against doing some weird like logical errors. And what a linter can do is it uses syntactic, it looks at how you're writing your code and can find situations in which you can make your life easier or maybe even prevent certain types of logical bugs. So an example here that they have in the documentation is they see that someone's using map followed by flat. And in JavaScript, there's a function that's called flat map. And so what this lets you do is you could in one iteration, you can run this rather than this would have two copies of the list. So this is a type of logical error, or not even logical error, but it's catching something that you could improve in your code.
I see.
And there are different, like in biome, you can like look up these different scopes of errors. So I wonder if we're under like the rules now, or I don't know. But you can go and look and you can see, yeah. And so these are all the different rules and they're grouped by different tags. So these are some for accessibility. So if you're using like JSX, like you'll actually get a rule, an issue if you're missing this particular attribute, or if you're using this particular attribute. In this case, you're not supposed to. And yeah, I wonder maybe if I open this up more. There are these like complexity, like thing, style, which these I think you can be a bit more loose with style things. But by default, the nice thing about biome that I found is the configuration is it's pretty minimal by default.
Mhm.
And it also comes by default with um enabling recommended rules. So you don't really have to configure it that much. You can sort of get started and go from there. So
Okay.
so I think to get started, what we can do is there's a way. So we want to first install biome. So I'm just going to copy this and save it as a development dependency. And then we're going to run this initialization command. So this is going to call this initialization. So if we right now if we run biome, npx biome check, it would tell us like all the different errors in here. So this could also be that we are, and we can turn off some of these things as well. Also I'm noticing, I think by default they use tabs, not spaces, but we can turn that off. So, okay. So yeah, so there are two different things that biome does. There's formatting, which is like not anything, no logical errors or anything like that, but it just is like keeps your code in a consistent type of formatting. And then linting is like looking for these different rules. And then fortunately, they actually have this command that's just called check, which looks for both of the things. So if you run, versus if I run, I think if we were to run just like npx biome lint, this would just, oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. It already run. npx, sorry, npx biome lint. If we ran this will just tell us the linting errors that we're getting. And then if we ran like format, it would just tell us the formatting errors that we're getting. So these are things that would be fixed. So in our config, I think the first thing we should do is make sure that we're using spaces, because that's sort of like what you already have set up. So
Spaces or tabs, I think.
so biome prefers tabs, but prettier I know is spaces. So I think actually we could go over migrate from, we have this section about migrating, and prettier.
I'll use tabs.
Yes, but we want, this is kind of what we want. So for our formatter, we want indent width, indent style, and let's see what this says. So we have fewer errors now. I'm just trying to see. Now these just, I guess we can go look at this file.
I didn't see any message with this. Oh,
Maybe you're using, it could be that you're using 4 spaces actually. So if we go back. Yeah, now it's much fewer formatting things. So right, anyway, this is just like these break, like this is a thing that the formatter is just saying like, hey, in terms of a style guide, or
I see. Wait, so are you calling it with npx just because you want to just see it, or
yeah, so I was just running that because in order to, like, you can do node modules bin, I think it's like dot bin biome check or some, or format,
okay?
and npx is an alias for like calling that if you are in
Oh,
or sorry, npx biome format is an alias for calling to your node modules if you have it. So I think npx stands for like npm executable or something like that, but it's sort of overloaded because in some contexts it'll like fetch over the network and get a dependency and run it. And in this case, because we're in a project and it has that binary installed, it will just use that.
I see.
I don't know. It depends by package manager. PNPM, you can just run PNPM and it will look for you, but NPM, you have to run NPX.
I see.
Yeah. Right. So I guess what maybe NPI I guess yeah. So for this type of PR, if we run NPX biome format, you'll see that we have a bunch of things to change. And this is usually where it's a little bit tricky, but where it's good to like add these things in. So this PR will end up being a bit larger, right? Because we're applying these like code fixes. But then after this PR, every pull request that gets made has to adhere to the style guide. And so you'll have much smaller diffs in the future because you've sort of like started saying like, this is how I want to format the code base.
Oh, okay.
Essentially.
So I think what's maybe still not sure to me is how do you do the check versus how do you do the code format change?
Yeah, so I think in this case, if we did npx biome format like apply, that would actually like run it on the file system. But right now, this is what essentially what you'd want to run in CI because this would fail. Yeah. Because if we do git status, like we haven't written anything to the files. Yeah. So the question now, it's like you have this indent style. I think most of your code is indented with like 4 spaces, but then there are other parts that are indented by 2. The usual JavaScript convention is like 2 spaces.
Yeah,
So
that's what I also prefer. I
Okay.
wonder why it is in there.
it can, I think it's just certain files that it was like that, or certain code blocks. Like we can check. So here I'm running. We can see that in TSV parser.
TSV parser.
Oh no, that one's different. Maybe I was wrong. Oh, here's one. What's this? Chromatin test.
Okay.
And it's like line, no, file name
Yeah, const file. Is it 20? Yeah. No.
Huh.
I mean, this is still 2 spaces.
It could,
What's the difference actually?
like all I'm
This is
seeing.
before, like the red is before, isn't it?
Yes, but it doesn't look like that's true actually, right?
I mean, this test file is not that big, so we can.
I guess here, why don't I do is I'll just say git add let's say git commit CI set or set up biome formatting config. Then we can do npx biome format fly. Right? There we go. Now if we run git diff, we can see.
Was it the spaces? Wasn't it something else?
I mean, maybe it was the reporting was just weird because this doesn't actually look okay. I think it was just off with what it was reporting. Because this diff doesn't actually look that bad.
Yeah.
But now you see that we have wait, we formatted like the whole code base. So then I'd have something that I add, and I say git commit like drawer.
But you could actually, before committing it, we could set up the CI so that it actually
fails. Yeah, okay, that's good. Store test staged. Right, okay. And then we can go to our workflow. So let's get restore dot restore GitHub workflows CI. And I like I just usually group these two under something called linting in CI, even though they are sort of like separate. And one nice thing with Biome is that they actually have their own GitHub action.
Okay.
Because it's written in Rust, you actually like we can actually get it. This one's already you don't have to run pnpm or npm install. You can just like run an action that only checks. So whoops, let me go here. And so this step of CI is usually like super fast. So and I'm going to, but I will actually, oops. For now I'm gonna do format. And that's just because we're not checking for linting yet. So this is a GitHub action. It's going to set up biome. We could specify a specific version. I think it's probably fine to, at least now, just keep that latest. And then we're going to run format, but without like write. So this should throw an error. So add this, say again. Let's add format. Add linting. Okay, now we go back to the repo.
Guess it's already also running it.
And now, but we should get that a bunch of errors, right? So yes, so now if I go back, we can see that the other jobs are still running, but this one is has failed.
Here.
So now we can run npm or npx biome format right. Dist assets. Okay, so in our I did this. What was this? In Zarita, I found this the other day. Usually you have to ignore stuff in biome, and we can say ignore VCS. So VCS is version control system. We can say, hey, we're using Git, and you should ignore npx. So anything that you're ignoring in your .git ignore, it also won't format.
I see.
And now add this, git commit or apply biome formatting. So now in our CI, back. Nope, wrong repo. We should be running the linter.
But that's really useful. Even just knowing kind of what currently is the most appropriate tool is super useful.
Yeah, I get formatting is always a weird one because if you ever switch, if there's slight differences, you'll end up having like a PR or a diff that's like I don't know, you'll get a bunch of garbage. It's just there is a way in GitHub to like ignore from the history like certain commits, at least in terms of when you're looking at Git plain, which can be useful. But I think in an early stage of a project, it's just like if you pick something and it works, like it'll keep with you for a bit. Yeah. And now we can look and we can see, okay, so everything's passing. And yeah, you see that there's a big, that's pretty sizable diff, but like you could definitely go through and just see like all the different places where, there's an extra space here that's been removed, like these little things that, and this will also in your, let's see, if we go to source, main, I know that you use Mason, but there is a biome like LSP. And so now, like, let's say let me go up here and I do something like this, and I have it set up to control F. In the file, it will just automatic. And you can also set up your editor to apply changes on a specific on save even or something like that. And so it just can even be as you're like editing, you get format on save, and that can be kind of nice. Okay. So I would say let's merge this PR because it is kind of sizable on its own, but it gets like a biome in there. Just let's squash and merge. Oh, you got it. It's fine. All right. Yeah. Okay, but so now we have biome in, and but we're not checking for any of these like linting things. Another nice thing that Biome has that you have set up here, this is one thing that really sold me on it. It has this feature to organize your imports as well. So one of the fixes that you can get is like often I don't know like what order I should have
Right,
those,
right.
and there is sort of like some rules around like import like third-party dependencies before your own files, and like it'll automatically apply those for you as well.
I see, nice.
So if we do, so let's check out our git switch hands t biome lint. I guess yeah, maybe the last branch wasn't the best. Okay, so now if we run npx biome lint, we should get we should get a bunch, I think, with this. And this is where it ends up getting to be like, okay, what
Bit opinionated.
a bit opinionated about like, so these are some that I would even say like
Very, 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 very.
I think this one's coming because you're not using like triple equals, but
Mm.
that is like a way a double equals against a null will also check for undefined. So like these are sort of a bit more opinionated. Like here's one that's saying you should like non-null assertion, it like you can have a rule against that because that's fine to do in TypeScript, but like maybe you want to prevent against this. This is one where it's saying like you should prefer importing node stuff with node assert rather than that's sort of like a newer convention.
Yeah,
Like here, node FS rather than FS.
I wonder where does that come from?
Here,
Yeah,
it's in testing.
it's in test.
I think it's where you read in your fixture or whatever.
Okay.
Here's one like if you're using parse float, make sure like it's just like don't use maybe it's preferred to not to use a namespace rather than to use a global or something like that.
I see.
Here's one where if you're importing only a type, you should
Yeah,
be clear about that. I think you can actually make TypeScript like enforce that too.
I saw those errors once in a while.
So for of it's okay, but okay, so here's maybe one like for now we can I'll just show you how to do this. So let's copy this rule. We can go to or we can do this too. So PDB parser. So if we go to PDB parser, what's going on here?
Oh, that lights up.
Yeah. But that's okay. So let's go down to what was it? What was the one that
It was for each something.
each? Oh, here it is. So let's say like for this particular line, we want to ignore this in your editor with the you can do code action, so space CA. And then Biome has a rule where I can just hit enter and I can ignore that. And then the convention is that then you leave a note and you say, I'm ignoring this because blah, blah, blah. And you like provide a justification for like why you want to ignore it. That's for certain things. Like sometimes it's okay to do like you have a non-null assertion or something. And that's great because like, or like if somehow you're like, I know that this can't be null, like you can ignore it for that line and then say like, I'm ignoring it for this reason. If we wanted to for the whole project, let's say like for that specific rule, we could go to line up here and we can say, so it's lint. So we can say lint. Or is it, maybe it's just complexity, yeah. And we can say no for each off.
Interesting name, complexity.
Yeah, so it's like again they have like scopes for the different ones. So one of them is these are things that like I guess aren't like critical. They're not like logical errors, but it's more like there's for of is like preferred for whatever instead of for each.
It's like a category. Like
yes, like the accessibility is another one. So now if we run npm biome lint, we shouldn't see those for ofs anymore, like because we're ignoring that rule.
I see. Okay, good.
And one thing we could do first is biome lint has this ability to apply. Or maybe we should do what we did before.
Yeah,
So
we can just do the
let's restore source, and then get then source dot workload CI. And instead of format, we're going to do CI. So CI checks both formatting and linting. Or linting and format. Oops. All right, so now this should happen really quick, but we should get some squiggles. Okay, yeah, we got all this stuff now. And then what we can do is npx biome lint apply. And we still are going to get some errors because there are some things that like it doesn't know how to fix them. Like, for instance, this is these triple equals versus double equals are things that I don't, maybe this is something so in JavaScript, a double equals has weird behavior. And what it'll do is it'll try to converse what's it called? It'll try to take the type and coerce it into a string. So if you had an integer, like if you, for instance, I think if we did node, let's see if we do equals 0, see how that's true. This is a string on the left.
Yeah.
This is an integer on the right, or a number on the right. Triple equals is actual equals. So that's sort of like a weird thing. Apparently, I think when JavaScript was made, they thought that this was like cute, and then they can't remove it from the language, so then they introduced triple equals to do the strict stuff.
Yeah.
So that's something that, yeah, again, like a linter will help you with because so let's see, let's do this again. I'm also so there is one too that's called apply unsafe. So there are some fixes that aren't necessarily like from the point of view of the linter, like a safe fix to make, but it'll try to make them for you. So if we do this, I wonder if we could get more. So now, yeah, we have 7 things left. So we can see like what is the we could go through. So I think what maybe what we can do first is so get restore source or get restore dot view npx biome lint and first apply the safe fixes. Oops, apply. And say git commit and sure apply safe fixes. Oh, whoops. And then we can do npx apply unsafe. And now we can look at this. So see, these are strict checks to see if like these things are equal to one another. I think the one thing that you'd want to make sure about is if the one thing that is useful sometimes, or that you'll see in code that's like, if we go to node, like if like, let's say foo equal or that foo equals null, foo equals undefined is true and foo equals null is also true. So that's a check that's like, you'll sometimes see like if foo double equals null, and that's a check that allows you to check for both undefined and null.
I see.
But other than that, that's kind of the only case that I know of that
Where you would use it.
of where you'd use the double equal. Yeah. So npx biome, let's see. So right. So this is one where like these like this is like a style thing.
Oh, I see.
And this is one that I generally like. I personally don't know of any time that like, I guess you could get like reassigning, but TypeScript will yell at you if you try to change the type or something with assignment. So this might be one that actually like,
I think this is just like making, how would you call it? It's not like a shadow copy, but just using the same name as a parameter
yeah,
inside a local function. Could that be it?
yeah, exactly. So we can actually go to source chromatin whatever it is, like 2x. And we could go find this. Yeah, you could see on line 16 here, or down.
Yeah, yeah.
You're basically handling the case where it's undefined. And that's okay. Like for TypeScript, um, yeah. The way that this wouldn't yell at you is you can do something like, or no, that I think also would yell at you. Anyway, so for these, it might be okay to just say like, I don't know, it's not giving me the ignore, but I would just in biome, like
Yeah.
I personally like this style rule is not one that like I particularly
I see.
worry about, and maybe it, like
Yeah, I think these I see. Use const, you have off for style and no parameter assign. You also have
yeah.
with the reason.
And this is one like down here. I mean, this is in a test file. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's weird that it's not letting me.
Surprise.
There we go. We just say okay. So now unsafe syntaxes. Oops. And the nice thing is now, like, so we applied these unsafe fixes, but you also have some unit tests. And so like there is this, you almost have this like confirmation, like if you've tested okay,
I
that
see.
like
Yeah, yeah.
then you know that some of these like maybe code changes aren't like gonna necessarily break something. But at least from a high level, it seemed like these changes aren't super, like it's even less than the formatting. So I'm not going to merge this. What I would recommend is like maybe you go through and like
Yeah.
look at this diff, and then if it looks good, I would merge it. And yeah, in the
Okay.
I
Interesting. There's still an
let's-
error.
yeah, so I think what we need to do is organize your imports is the last thing. So if we do npx biome check apply, what this
6, 7 fonts, I see.
this does is it's going to organize imports, so we can do and what I'm going to add to your npm or package.json, we're just going to add fix.
Mm.
This will be biome. What did I say? Check apply.
And be just bio here. Oh, because because it's run through.
npm run
To be
so
npx.
we run npm run fix. That will apply
Mhm.
all linting formatting or import organization. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the last thing I do, I'm gonna have to hop off, but if we go to .github, there's this dependabot thing.
Mhm.
And in order to get dependabot to start like helping you out in your GitHub folder, you just add dependabot.yaml and you paste in this file.
Mhm.
And this says that every month for the GitHub actions that are in this repo, check to see if you can bump any of the dependencies.
Mhm.
And for the NPM dependencies, also do the same monthly.
I see.
And what dependabot will do is it'll open PRs for you that bump these dependencies, and then you just have to merge them.
Mm.
So we'll add that file.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trevor.
Yeah.
It's it's just awesome how much faster you can get stuff done when somebody knows who really knows this stuff. Helps you.
Yeah, cool. Well, now you're sort of on this like this is I think like you have been sort of in this state where you've been iterating and you have some of the things in place, and these are just sort of like I like to think of them it's like you're in a bowling alley, you have these like guardrails up,
Right.
and like now you like have to make sure that you like please, like you can't stray too far off the path, or you just have these things that if you're relying on yourself to run, you might forget or like quick run something. And this way it's sort of like you have a computer that's always yelling at you, being like, oh, like this will and so yeah, now if more people collaborate on the repo, like it's very clear, like you don't have to have a conversation around like, oh, could you format this differently? It's like you've set up the guidelines around like your project. So yeah. Cool.